Well, hello there. It's Gerda here, and I'm so happy that you've decided to tune in to the Private Practice Success Podcast today. However, before I talk to you about today's topic, I did want to ask you a really important question, and this is the following. When last did you actually step out of the day-to-day running of your practice long enough to think strategically about where your business is heading? Rather than just surviving another week, rather than just putting out fires the entire time, rather than just managing everybody else's needs, only to get to the end of your week feeling like what you need and what you want actually doesn't matter. When in fact it does, and it should. Because this is what I know, because I've been there, done that, and I see this all the time. The one thing you don't need in your world is more busyness. I'm going to take an educated guess here and say that you need a business breakthrough. And that is exactly why I'm inviting you to join me at the 2026 Private Practice Business Intensive happening in Byron Bay this August. This is a 2-day in-person experience for group allied health practice owners who are ready to stop running on the hamster wheel and start leading their businesses with more clarity, more confidence, more strategy, and really, really importantly, more intention. Across the 2 days, we'll dive into ethical business strategy, leadership growth, future-proofing your practice, implementation, masterminding, and creating meaningful connections with other like-minded practice owners who truly get private practice. And let's be honest here, most of the times the breakthrough you need only happens when you step away from the practice long enough to finally see that bigger picture. So if you're ready for your next business breakthrough, I would love to facilitate it for you. Head on over to the show notes, grab your ticket for the 2026 Private Practice Business Intensive. I would absolutely love to welcome you there. Now let's get started with today's topic. Well, hello there, fabulous private practice owner. My name is Gerda Muller, and you are listening to the Private Practice Success Podcast. And this is episode number 76. I'm going to start off by saying Happy New Financial Year, because this podcast episode is going live on Monday, the 6th of July, 2026, which means we would be 6 days into the new financial year. Now, I'm not sure whether that makes you excited, but it does make me excited because you know why? It means a clean slate when it comes to our finances, which to me is incredibly empowering. But there is a big but. July 2026 is a start of a lot of change for us as business owners. And a couple of weeks ago, I was, doom scrolling on Facebook as you do, and I came across a video by Liz Nabel. She helps business owners grow their business through leveraging the media and PR. And she did a video, a reel, as they call it, if it's short. And she said, I don't want you to be alarmed, but the 1st of July 2026 is going to be the most expensive day in business in Australian history. And yes, that might sound alarmist, but I think it's important for us to take note because a lot of things are changing and a lot of it is not in the best interest of business, particularly small business. There is a lot of additional expenses that has now been put onto the shoulders of, particularly, I'm talking small business owners here because that's you, my audience. I'm also a small business owner. And as business owners, our eyes need to be open to that. And that's not being dramatic or alarmist. That is being realistic so that we can go into this with open eyes. So yes, it is becoming more and more expensive to do business as an Australian small business owner. Now, I'm also talking to you today off the bat of just having spent a week with my Director of Strategy and Operations, or AKA my practice manager, business manager, ops manager, basically the person in charge of my practice, the fabulous Ashley. And I spent 4 days with her down in Brisbane. And I went down to spend this time with her because it is the start of a new financial year, right? Now, we had already looked back at the previous financial year when we met with my practice accountant and we did our tax planning, all of that good stuff. So this was an opportunity for me and her to sit together in a room with some butcher's paper, with some Excel sheets, and plan ahead the financial year of 2026-27. An important part of that plan is our budget. So we went through that whole process. And of course, it's not just the budget. It is stuff like, the award increase has occurred. We reviewed salaries. We do all of that type of financial decision making so that come the 1st of July, we know what we are doing from a financial standpoint within my practice. So considering all of this within the context that the 1st of July is the onset of increased business costs for small business owners, and myself having gone through this process with Ashley last week in preparation for the new financial year, I wanted to come on here to the podcast and share with you a simple exercise that could save your practice thousands of dollars. Okay? This is saving. So this is not about generating. There's a lot of things that I can share with you about generating thousands of extra dollars without hiring new team members. I actually call it my 30K extraction process. And between me and you, that is generally the minimum amount that people extract. I've had people go through that process and extract 300,000. That was the highest one that I can remember off the top of my head without hiring more team. So yeah, I can help you with generating more money as well. But today I want to talk about saving because I don't know about you, but I don't like waste. I don't like wastage in general. And I also don't like to waste money because money is a resource and I would rather be in a position of using that resource in a better way instead of wasting it. So that is what I want to talk to you and share with you today, because this is also something that I do myself at my practice. I've been doing it for a very long time, so I know it works. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, are you going to tell me that I need to do a budget, Gerda? Well, that's not the simple exercise that I'm alluding to. But now that you're mentioning budgets, I 100% recommend having a budget. I will also be the first to put my hand up and say that for many years within my own practice, I did not have a budget. I didn't, because I just looked at my bank account and went, is there money in? Yeah, we're all good. Am I paying the bills every week? Yeah, we're all good. Can I pay the wages every week? The contractors? Yeah, we're all good. Is the cash flow going up? Yeah, we're all good. But you know what? That's actually being wasteful. That is actually not having a clue about what's happening within your business. That is like trying to steer this business towards growth and you actually don't know where you're going. So having a budget is really helpful to you as the business owner. Now, I've heard people recommend that if the word budget makes you go, oh, I don't want to do it, just call it a spending plan. That sounds like a lot more fun than having a freaking budget. And it's like, this is how I get to spend my money. So if that works for you, do that as well. And I've tried thinking about it like that, but then I just thought, you know what, just grow up, Gerda. Grow up. If you want a grown-up business, you need a freaking grown-up budget. And that doesn't mean too fancy-dancy. It's actually easy. If you've got Zero's budget is so super easy to navigate. It is so simple. And if your Zero gives you the ick, You need to work on that because your zero is an incredibly important resource that you have within your business. Okay, so yes, you should have a budget. And I say that as somebody that doesn't consider herself to be a numbers person. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a spreadsheet nerd. That's not who I am. I'm not a zero nerd. It's not who I am. But I am somebody that looks at these resources and go, this is how I can use these things resourcefully. This gives me information to make good decisions. And you know what is one of the really great benefits of having a budget is clarity. Because without that clarity, when there's uncertainty, it causes this really low-level anxiety. It's like that buzz. You know that buzz when you're in the airplane? I recently flew to South Africa, so I've spent a lot of hours recently in an aircraft. But it's like that constant buzz on an airplane, for example, or that constant sound when you're in a vehicle. It's not too off-putting, you still function, you do everything you need to, but there's that underlying anxiety because there's uncertainty. And if you don't have a great cash flow, in other words, a good balance in your bank account, it gets more intense and more intense over time. And I don't want that for you. So your budget creates certainty. Quick side note, if you are a group practice owner, please know that it is my mission to help you go from overwhelmed, overworked, and most probably underpaid to fully empowered and financially thriving. Helping you build a practice you can't stop smiling about is more than just a tagline in my world. It is what I do. So if you know that you want more from your business, if you know that you deserve more from your business, then today is the day I invite you to reach out. In the show notes, you will find a link to a super short triage form. Pop in your details. I will personally go through your responses and will get back to you ASAP to let you know how I can help. And if I can't, I'll point you in the right direction. Don't put your dreams on the back burner any longer. The sooner you start, the sooner I can help you get there. Now back to the episode. Your budget helps you sleep better at night. Your budget helps you to make better decisions. Your budget is like guardrails for financial decision making. Because once you've popped it in place, now you know when I was calm, when I was in that space of planning and thinking big picture, this is the decisions that I've made. Now, that being said, a budget does not have to be cast in stone. And I promise I'm going to get to the simple exercise that's going to save you thousands. But I always feel like I need to give you all the stuff. Yeah, as I was saying, a budget doesn't have to be cast in stone, right? If something pops up that you could not foresee, you're not going to spend more money. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the budget and go, all right, I want to spend $5,000 on this thing that I didn't plan for. Where have I not used money? And I can move it from this one line item to another one. So you have that freedom. There's a lot of freedom within a budget, but it's really about going, this is what I'm going to limit myself to. These are the expenses, this amount of money that I'm willing and prepared to spend in the next 12 months in order to achieve the profit margin that I want to achieve as the business owner. So that's incredibly important. So that's that big picture budget process. Now, today I want to talk to you about one specific part of creating the budget. So as I said, last week I spent 4 days with Ash and we went through this process. We go through this every year. And I actually start the budgeting process by looking at my break-even sheet. So that is an actual Excel sheet that I use. And today I want to talk to you about a particular section of my break-even sheet, and that is my expense list. which basically is what the name says. It's a list of all the expenses within my break-even sheet. Now, those expenses are also the exact expenses that is in my zero account on my profit and loss statement in the expenses section. So you really want to ensure that the expenses on your break-evens going to match the words that's on your chart of accounts, that's going to appear in your profit and loss, and that's going to appear in your budget on zero. You don't want to use different words here. It needs to be the same so you know what it refers to, what it involves. And we always review this. We made a list of this line item, what type of expenses goes into there, so we can now again, and Ash is having this meeting on Friday with our bookkeeper, go, this is the stuff that you need to assign to this chart of account. Because every year we want to dial things in just a little bit better, just a bit more precise, just a bit more efficient, so that all the data that we're looking at in zero becomes more and more and more accurate year after year, right? It's not always about doing something new, people. It's about really optimizing what you are already doing. So again, that's a bit big picture. So coming back to the list of expenses, and that brings me to the simple exercise that I want to talk to you about today. And I call this the expense audit. Now, you might be listening to this and going, I already do an expense audit every year, Gerda. And if that is you, that tells me that you probably are an accumulator money archetype, which means that you have your very own inner banker. Now, all of us aren't like that. And if that is you, I wish I was you, but that's not who I am. I've actually assessed my own money archetypes, and my primary money archetype, which is also referred to as the inner empire builder. I promise you, I did not make that up. You can go and check it out. But that means that the ruler is always reinvesting, building stuff, growing things. So us rulers, we don't like a freaking budget. We don't like to look at our expenses because we want to invest. We want to engage in expenses because we can see what it's going to lead to. The accumulator who has the inner banker, they go, no, we need to hold on to these things. Doesn't mean they don't build businesses, okay? But they do it in a different way. So money archetypes is an incredibly interesting discussion. It reveals a lot about one's personal money blocks. But I digress. So if you are an accumulator, you've probably already done your expense audit. You might even do this once a quarter. If you aren't an accumulator money archetype and you any of the other 7, then I want to encourage you today to do an expense audit because it is incredibly helpful, and this is a great time of year to do it. I would probably do it like end June, very, very start of July at the latest. So let me know whether this sounds familiar. Maybe you've had your tax planning meeting with your accountant and they pulled up the profit and loss and you go through it and suddenly you're going, geez Louise, I didn't know that our expenses is that much. Or perhaps you're looking at the line right at the bottom and you're going, why is there so little profit on the P&L? We've not even added the liabilities in the balance sheet, and look at it. Where's all the money gone? And then a lot of times you have this, it's like a slap in the face and you go, holy shit, I need to stop spending. I need to cut expenses. And then you go crazy. It's like you're a woman on a mission. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to get rid of this software. I'm going to ask, do I really need that? And before you know it, you've cut all these things. But the problem is this. People then go overboard because they've not been checking these things. You might not even have a budget, which makes it even worse. And then you cut things to the bone. And the problem is this. Just like our bodies need healthy fat, our business needs healthy fat. Not only that, if you cut into the muscle, guess what? The muscle can't work. And it's the same with your business. If you just go in and cut without going through a structured process, aka an expense audit, you're going to have the opposite outcome to what you want, because your business ain't going to be working anymore. You are going to break your business. You might feel good. It's like, I've just saved $50,000 for the next 12 months. Well, guess what? If that breaks your business, you might not have a business at the end of 12 months. So you need to go into this level-headed, and you need to go into this with a clear process, aka a structure, for making decisions around what am I going to cut and what am I going to keep. And you need to make logical decisions here. And that's what I want to help you with today. But I want to start by giving you a practical example. I've seen this thing like 100 times. One of the first things, for example, that practice owners like to cut when they do their expense audit is their cleaner. So the office cleaner. I can understand why you go there, right? Because let's say, for example, and this is like a ridiculous number, but let's say you spend $100 a week paying a cleaner to come in, vacuum, tidy things up, do a bit of dusting. You pay $100 a week. You might look at that and say, yeah, let's cut that. I'm just going to clean myself, right? Easy. I can do that. Or maybe you're going, you know what? I'm just going to get the receptionist to do that. They can most certainly do 30 minutes on a Monday, 30 minutes on a Friday, and they can just, fit it in maybe even as they do all the other jobs. But I want you to think about it like this. If you, the business owner, are doing the cleaning, whether you do that Monday to Friday or what a lot of you do, you're going in on a Saturday and on a Sunday to do the cleaning, what is that actually costing you? Yes, you might not be paying that $100 towards a cleaner, but if you are doing cleaning as a practice owner Monday to Friday, it is costing you your hourly charge out rate. See, if you normally charge clients $280 for a session, that's what you are actually now paying to clean your practice without even realizing it. Because in that hour that you're doing the cleaning, you could have been seeing a client at $280. Or during that hour, you could have been writing marketing copy, doing networking, attending a GP meet and greet. You could have been doing something that would have generated maybe not only 280, but 280 times 10 with new business that it would come in as a result. So that is actually what it's costing your business by you doing that job. But let's say you go, okay, you've convinced me, Gerda, I won't do that, but my receptionist doesn't have a $280 charge out rate. No, they don't. But if they're busy cleaning, I wonder how many phone calls they are missing. Because I can tell you now, the way that people shop, for lack of a better word, for mental health and allied health services have changed. If you aren't answering the phone ASAP, or at the very least getting back to people ASAP, you will lose them. They've already moved on to the next provider, because there's way more providers right now in the industry than there were 3, 5, 7, 10 years ago. So how many phone calls are they not answering? How many people's calls are now going to voicemail because they are vacuuming instead of doing an intake and getting somebody booked in? That's what it's costing you. You might be saving $100, but you might be losing $1,000 in lifetime value of getting reception to book in a brand new client during that time that they are now cleaning. So do not make knee-jerk decisions here, because it will come back to bite you. All right. So how do we do this then, Gerda? I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to take you through 3 questions. Like, it's really simple. We're not going to overcomplicate this, because otherwise there's just something else for you to become overwhelmed with. And I know, because I've been exactly where you are. I've been in your shoes. I'm still in your shoes. I'm a practice owner myself. So it's going to be 3 questions that I want you to take yourself through when you do your expense audit. So make sure you've got pen and paper handy. Question 1 is, how is this expense serving the business? Not, can the business survive without it? Not, can I technically do this myself? No. How is this serving the business? So if you look at the previous example of the cleaner, how is having a cleaner serving your business? Well, it means that clients walk into a clean environment. A clean environment shows respect. It means that your clinicians get to work in a clean environment. So they feel looked after, which is really, really important. So having a clean space for your clients and your clinicians to come into makes your practice feel professional. It elevates the client experience. So 100% it is serving the business. So you want to ask yourself, is this serving the business? Yes or no? And then if it's a yes, you want to ask yourself, how important is this expense in its serving of the business? And I would encourage you to give it a rating out of 10. So for me, having a cleaner, that's 8 out of 10. It's pretty important. And I would encourage you to never score 7 out of 10. That's a very non-committal rating. It really says nothing. An 8 says you're doing well. A 6 says it's not good enough. So 7, do not score yourself a 7 ever. Make yourself go, it's either good or it's not, and it needs attention. Question number 2. Ask yourself this. How is this expense serving me? Me as the practice owner. And I will warn you that this is very often the question where most practice owners get themselves into trouble. Why? Because you are a responsible person. Because you care about your clients, you care about your team. I know you are a hard worker. So what do you say normally? You just go, I'll just do it. I'll take that on. Let's just save the money. And that, my friend, is why so many practice owners burn out. And it's not a quick burnout. Unfortunately, in allied health, private practice, it's a very insidious burnout. It's a slow burnout. And it's like it's happening, and very often you don't even realize it's happening until it is too late, which is why I'm making you ask this question. So instead of just cutting something, you want to ask yourself, is this expense serving me? And you know what? It is okay for this to be about you, because as helping professionals, it's always about other people. It's about our clients first and foremost. It is about our clinicians first and foremost. It is about our family first and foremost. And we put ourselves last, but no longer. And not on my watch. It's why I do what I do. I'm here to advocate for you as the practice owner, the person that is there to help others so that you can put your mask on fast. So you have to ask yourself, how is this expense serving me? Now, it can serve you in various different ways. It could be something that gives you back more time. It could be something that helps you reduce your overwhelm. It could be something that protects your energy. Maybe it is something that makes you feel supported in your role, something that helps you to lead better and make better decisions. So if it's something that supports you, I think it should stay on the expense list. But ask yourself, does this serve you? Yes or no? And again, give it a rating. How well does it serve you? How important is it for you to have this support before you make a decision to cut it? And very importantly, be mindful of your inclination to put others first. When it comes to you being the business owner, you have to look after yourself. And last but not least is question number 3. And that is, what is the return on investment on this expense. And here I'm not just talking money. Money is really important, right? I'm really talking about 3 forms of return that you could be receiving from this expense item. First, obviously, money. Does this investment, this expense, produce a financial return? Okay, if you, for example, put $10 towards marketing, let's say you do Google Ads, you put $10 towards Google Ads and it brings back $20, that's a good return. If it brings back $50, that's an even better return. If it's not bringing in any money, that's not any return. So we have to look at return in terms of dollars. The next thing we want to look at, what is the return in terms of time? Because every investment you make doesn't give you a financial return. Sometimes it is a time return. So time as a resource is pretty important. So does this expense create more efficiency within the business? Does it free up capacity within the business? Does it allow your clinician team or your admin team to optimize what it is that they're doing? So if you get a great return in terms of time, that is good. And then the third one is energy. And this is a huge one and often the one that's overlooked. So this investment, does it create positive energy? And does it remove stress? Or does it create stress for me? What does it do? How does this impact my stress levels? Because if you think about it, your business is an ecosystem. And within any ecosystem, energy matters. Your energy first and foremost, because no matter how hard you try to manage it, hide it, mask it, your team are very astute people. They're also helping professionals. They will be picking up on your energy. What about your team's energy? How's that impacting the client experience, for example? How's that impacting their longevity in their role? So energy, both within you and your clinical and your administrative team, is incredibly important. So maybe you've got an expense that doesn't lead to a financial return, but it leads to an energetic return, a culture return. And that is equally important. Financial return isn't more important than time, aka efficiency and capacity return. And it also, those two aren't more important than an energetic, aka a culture return, and a client experience, customer service, wow factor return. They are all of equal importance. So don't only look at a return in terms of dollars, because that's normally the one that's easy to see, where you can draw that direct line between I've paid money towards this and I'm getting X amount of dollars back. Yeah, that's easy. But it's then when people cut the time and in the energetic return that it comes back to bite you in the ass. Seen it, experienced it, want you to avoid it. So that was the 3 questions. So just for clarity, I want you to think about that expense with the following mindset. Every expense is guilty until proven innocent. And how do we prove them innocent? By asking 3 questions. So 3 questions about this one expense. So let's say if we look at our cleaner example, we're going to ask, how is this expense of having a cleaner serving the business? Then we're going to ask, how is this expense of having a cleaner serving me as the business owner? And then 3, how is this expense of having a cleaner generate a return on investment, whether financial, time, or energetic? And then you're going to go to the next item and you're going to ask, this bookkeeping fees that I pay every month, how is it? Insert question 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to go to the next line item and you're going to go, this business coaching fees that I'm paying every month, how is it? Insert question 1, 2, and 3. You're going to ask and you're going to rate and then you're going to make a decision. Okay, so once you've gone through every expense and you've asked this question and you've made a decision, Is it staying or is it going? Maybe if it's staying, do I need to try and negotiate a better deal? For example, if I have an electricity provider, you can do stuff like that as well. And I encourage you to consider all of that, like my insurance. Am I still with the best provider? Can I get the same benefits, but at a lower rate? Let's have a look at that. So that's like a whole next stage of things that you can do. But for now, we just want to make a decision about the expense itself. Is it staying or not? And once you've gone through this, you might discover various different things, and you'll actually find that it brings a lot of things to the forefront as you go through this process. And it's very, very worthwhile doing this process. I can tell you that. Now, you might find that you are saving thousands of dollars. Or if you are an accumulator, you're that inner banker, you have probably been running a really tight ship already. And you might find that maybe there's not that much that you can save, maybe a couple of dollars here and there, every dollar counts. But once you now have gone through this process, now it really gives you that confidence that you've given considered thought to every dollar that you're going to be spending within the practice. And I do this process from my break evens, like I said at the start, right? So I just want to connect it all back to that intro that when I gave you the context earlier on, because now it's on my break evens. And then my break evens Excel sheet then calculates for me what should my revenue be if this is my expenses. So that really helps with that revenue forecasting that allows me to then work out, okay, if that's the revenue that I need, and FYI, the way that it's set up is I also pop in what is the profit that I want the business to make in dollars. And then it spits out for me, if this is your expenses, this is a profit you want to make, this is the revenue that you need to generate. And now I can work back and go, okay, what does this mean in terms of what is our average session fees? How many rooms do we have? What's the current capacity? We then calculate how many clients do we need to see every day per room, per practice location over a 42 productive year of work within the business in order to achieve these financial goals. So your expense audit is an incredibly important part of helping you set your revenue targets and helping you achieve and hit that profit margin that you want to achieve within your business. It helps you set your booking targets. So it really gives that trickle down into what is the KPIs across the business and across all the teams, admin and clinicians that we need to hit in order to achieve our financial goals. And now you've got this pathway. And like I said earlier on, these guardrails, that if we just stick to these guardrails and go, this is the amount of money that I'm happy to spend this year. Yes, I can move stuff here, there, and everywhere, but this is the amount because I know by sticking to the budget, which really is our expenses, and now I know what the projections are when it comes to revenue. It's like, now we've got a plan. And not only a plan, we've got a map. We've got a pathway for achieving that. And everything else that we do in the business is going to be contributing to this. So every strategy that we're going to implement is going to take us one step further to achieving these financial goals. And when a business achieves its financial goals, everybody wins. The clients win because your doors are open. And right now, there is a lot of allied health businesses closing their doors. You might go, no, Gerda, what are you on about? The stuff aren't spoken about. There's a lot of shame around it. You actually need to go and look for the numbers and you will find it. There's a lot of people closing down their businesses. They're not even selling. They're just closing their doors, which is so freaking sad to me. So sad. If you've worked so hard, you've worked your ass off to build a practice, and then you just close it. You can't even sell it because you never ran it like a proper business. And that's not a judgment. That is not a judgment. And sometimes ago, if people only knew what to do, they could achieve such great things. But anyway, there's a lot of people closing their doors, and that doesn't serve clients. That means that clients can't get the help that they need. And it's not only private practices, there's NGOs shutting down. If NGOs that has funding and grants and they win all the government tenders, if they can't achieve the numbers they need to achieve, if they can't pay their bills, if they can't run a financially solvent organization, what freaking chance do we have? We don't get any grants. We aren't the ones winning all the tenders because you're private business. You for profit. You're the freaking devil. Okay, yes, I'm getting a bit dramatic here, but I get really fired up about this because private practice got such an important role to play to help clients. And we need to keep the doors open so we can service the clients. We need to keep the doors open so we can continue to provide employment opportunities and security to those fabulous clinicians that are serving the clients. And yes, so that you as a business owner can also make a living. You are allowed to be able to pay yourself a wage and to be able to pay your own bills. So when a business does well, particularly a small business, and particularly I'm going to add a female-owned small businesses because the majority of allied health professionals are females and I want females to excel. That's good for everybody. So yeah, I get very passionate about these things. I do hope in my heart of hearts that this was helpful. Thank you so very much for tuning in. I would very much appreciate it if you would go onto Apple or Spotify and give the podcast a rating. So it's normally a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5-star rating that you can give it. Please give me an honest rating, whatever it is. I appreciate it. And if you so inclined, feel free to share this with any other practice owner that you feel needs to hear the information that I share here on the podcast. So again, thank you for tuning in. And as always, remember that I am here to help you build a practice you can't stop smiling about.